let's go to Gene here. I wanted to see Ricky Collins in action. I commend Coach Fran Brown sticking with Steve Angeli because he is loyal, though. Gene, there were multiple instances in this game where I was fed up with Syracuse's quarterback, Steve Angeli, and there were moments when it seemed like the crowd was fed up with Steve Angeli in this one because he did not have a strong performance. And I understand that up until the end of the fourth quarter, that it was not all his fault, okay? Two things can be true, all right? Steve Angeli did not have a good 3.5 quarters. He also did not get a lot of help, okay? The entire offense was sputtering. The times where I was, quote unquote, done with Steve Angeli, I'll own up to it. About 5 minutes left in the third quarter, he had an awful dump off on second down. Then on third down, he gets sacked. And at that point, I'm like, all right, let's see what Ricky Collins can do because this Syracuse offense is doing nothing to start the second half. I just felt that the team needed a spark. And then in the fourth quarter, when he threw that interception along the right sideline and an underthrown ball, again, I was just fed up. I could not believe that Fran Brown was actually sticking with Steve Angeli and not seeing what he had in Ricky Collins. And let's be honest here. There is a very fine line between being a genius and being foolish. How about that? There's a fine line there with Fran Brown. So Fran Brown, today, he looks like a genius. He sticks with his guy in Steve Angeli. He's loyal. He talked about it in the postgame, how loyal he is to Steve Angeli. And the loyalty paid off because Steve Angeli found a way to turn around his performance in the final 5-ish minutes of the fourth quarter. Really did not make a single mistake from then on when he hit that touchdown to Justice Ross Simmons. But had Fran Brown stuck with his guy and Steve Angeli did not perform, what are we saying on this show? Fran Brown would be getting a lot of heat for it, for not turning to Ricky Collins in this one. But at the end of the day, this is a results business. And so Fran Brown, while we may have agreed with him, while we may have disagreed with him sticking with Steve Angeli, what he did worked. And so because it worked, I'm not going to sit here and be mad at it. But yes, Gene, I think myself, you, and many other Syracuse fans at some point in this game did want to see Ricky Collins. Now, going forward, Steve Angeli's the quarterback. Okay, he's going to be the quarterback for Friday night against Colgate. Barring some catastrophe in that game, he will also be the quarterback against Clemson, and we can reevaluate after that. I know Fran Brown still says that it's Steve Angeli's team. It's Steve Angeli is the guy. I think the jury is still out on Steve Angeli. I don't know if he's elite. I don't know if he's terrible. I want to see more. I'm still in wait and see mode with him. But because he was able to bounce back, Fran Brown looks like a genius this afternoon. All right, let's get to the next comment here. Not necessarily the most positive one, but that's okay. I guess that's kind of the point of the show. Let's go to Big Mac 392 here. Let's face it, Syracuse coaching sucks. Coach Fran Brown makes several bad decisions along the way. The defense remains weak, and the coaching is the equal of that. Putting Steve Angeli back in after the mega hit was remarkably stupid. I honestly cannot imagine this team doing well as the season progresses. Heck, Colgate will give them a game. All right, let's just stop right there for a moment. If Colgate is really giving Syracuse a game, that is really, really bad, okay? I think Syracuse should win that one by 30 to 40 points minimum. Syracuse in their history has never lost to an FCS opponent, but let's keep going right here. As regards the W in overtime, it was apparent that the UConn defense was gassed. That's probably true. Syracuse played above itself for just the few minutes left and made it a game. Credit the guys on the field for that. Fran's a nice guy, but he struggles to manage a game. Tough for the players and the fans. Yeah, a lot to unpack there, Big Mac. First off, regarding the hit with Steve Angeli. Steve Angeli took a lot of big hits against UConn. He also took a lot of big hits when he played against Tennessee in week 1. But here's the deal. Unless he's physically unable to perform, as of right now, Fran Brown is going to stick with Steve Angeli. And Steve Angeli also talked about it post-game how, look, he's a quarterback. He's been getting hit his entire life. So as long as Steve Angeli health-wise is okay, and as long as Fran Brown believes that he is okay, I'm not going to sit here and say it's crazy that after Steve Angeli takes a big hit, that he gets back up and he remains in the game for Syracuse. Obviously, again, the key there is that he is still physically able to perform. All right, so that's that. As far as the decision making is concerned, there were a lot of questionable decisions by Fran Brown and this coaching staff, which is odd because Big Mac, you say, let me pull up the comment here again about how Fran's a nice guy, but he struggles to manage a game here. Last year, I did not feel that way, and that's not because the team was good, but because I felt that Fran Brown, for the most part, was a really good game manager. But in this game, I don't necessarily think he managed it well, so I'm with you kind of on that. Now, let's go with the fourth down tries. Syracuse in the first half, including their very first drive of the game, got deep into UConn territory, 2 of their first 3 drives actually, and had fourth and short opportunities where they could have settled for a chip shot field goal, but instead they decided to go for it on fourth down. They did not get either fourth down, and as a result, they left potentially 6 points on the table. Now, normally, I am a big proponent of, especially early in games, just take the points. I know it stinks that you didn't get the touchdown. You're so close to getting the touchdown and you want the touchdown so bad, but you know what? 3 points doesn't hurt you. Just take the 3 points. However, I have scaled back a little bit on that. And it's because, in case y'all are unaware of this, well, the NFL is going on today. Actually, I'm recording this before the 1 o'clock games even start. You're watching this later on in the afternoon and in the evening. I trust NFL kicking games a lot more than college ones, where, yeah, maybe it's a shorter field goal within 30 yards, but if you're telling me it's 4th and 2, 4th and 1 early in a game, I don't mind it as much, just because I just don't trust kicking games as much as I do in college than in the NFL. I don't think they're as automatic from short distance as you might think. So I don't mind the fourth down attempts by Syracuse football. What I do mind is definitely the outcome of those. The first fourth down try was a terrible play call by offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon. Okay, it's 4th and 1.5, 4th and 2 yards, a direct snap to Dan Villari, who's lined up under center, is not a good call. You're too far away to run a play like that. So Dan Villari can fall forward, but as long as UConn gets some sort of push, which they did, they're going to stop Dan Villari short. It was not a good play call there. You are better off just turning around and handing it to Yassine Willis and seeing if he can fall forward and get the 2 yards, starting well back beyond the quarterback, but getting a running head start to the line of scrimmage. And then the second try, there was a free rusher on Steve Angeli. He got destroyed on the hit. He fumbled, and he fumbled so much so that the ball, instead of it being about the 10-yard line, because that's also the reason why you might want to go for it, you're pinning the other team back deep in its own territory when you go for it in case you miss. But in this case, Steve Angeli gets sacked because of a free rusher, and the ball is fumbled all the way to around the Syracuse 30 to 40-yard line, so that field position advantage is now gone. So again, I don't mind them going for it on 4th and short deep in UConn territory, but the first play call was bad, and the second attempt was just terrible execution on the part of Syracuse. As far as clock management is concerned, again, this is an area where I thought Fran Brown did really well with last year, and I was surprised because first-year head coaches, you'd think they might struggle with the clock, but he did not. Most of the time, he was very on point with the clock. He would outcoach the other coaches in games very often. In this game, he was not good with clock management. This really goes on Fran Brown here. It's hard to be upset over it, but let's think. Syracuse takes the lead late in the fourth quarter. They get the 2-point try to Darryl Gill. Right? So it's 20-17. Yassine Willis had the touchdown run outside right. We're all happy. They're up by 3 now. The problem was that Syracuse left too much time on the clock, time that they did not have to leave. They did not make UConn take a timeout. They did not bleed the clock. And so as a result, UConn, with a field goal, all they need is a field goal to tie the game. They have 48 seconds and 3 timeouts. I want to describe the situation to you a little bit better, okay? Syracuse snapped the ball on 1st and goal when they scored the touchdown with around 50 seconds left. The clock was rolling, and there was about 30 seconds left on the play clock. If you're Syracuse in that scenario, I know you want to go up tempo, and I know the priority is to ultimately score a touchdown. But in that situation, you need to do one of 2 things when you're managing the clock here. Either force UConn to burn a timeout so that they don't have as many timeouts for them to go down the field and potentially tie or win the game. Or if UConn's not going to burn their timeouts, well, bleed the clock. Either way, Syracuse needs a touchdown. Make it so that if UConn gets the ball back, they have essentially no time on the clock, but instead they don't bleed the play clock down. Actually, it was for 2 consecutive plays they didn't do it, and they didn't force UConn to burn a single timeout. And so UConn, to their credit, they take advantage of the clock management mistake by Fran Brown, and they get the game-tying field goal at the end of regulation. So Fran Brown, yeah, his decisions in this one, with 4th down, I could see both sides on it. With the clock management at the end of the game, not very good.